In the winter of 1962, the entire Whitmore family vanished from their estate in Ashwood Hollow without a single trace. The house was immediately sealed, leaving a perfectly frozen snapshot of the night they disappeared. Inside, the dining room table remained set for 6. Porcelain plates sat completely untouched, gathering dust alongside a fire that was left to slowly smolder out in the hearth. Everything suggested a family that intended to sit down for dinner and simply ceased to exist. This chart compares typical damage from known large predators. Standard wolf or bear marks are grouped lower to the ground, but the Whitmore estate had 3 massive gouges, too wide for a wolf and positioned exactly at the height of a grown man's throat. A local bear might scratch a door, but the height, depth, and placement of these marks don't match the predatory habits of anything in the local forest. They represent a physical anomaly that the standard biological record can't quite account for. Enter Daniel Cross. Daniel was a structural engineer hired to assess the crumbling mansion before it was demolished for a highway project. His entire worldview relied entirely on measurable physical data, things you can touch, things you can photograph. His intern, Priya, begged him not to go in alone, repeating local claims that whatever took the family was still living inside. Daniel waved her off. To an engineer, haunted houses are just structures suffering from rot, rats, and local teenagers trying to stare each other in the dark. He packed exactly what you'd expect for a clinical survey of a condemned building: a high-resolution camera, a digital tablet, a heavy-duty flashlight, and a solid steel crowbar for prying open warped doors. He was walking into the estate completely anchored to reality. But when you try to map the rigid framework of modern skepticism onto an environment that ignores the laws of nature, you don't get answers. You get a massive, dangerous blind spot. For the first 20 minutes, the house behaved exactly like a rotting building. Daniel methodically documented cracked support beams and heavy water damage, moving past wine glasses holding the evaporated residue of a 1962 vintage, and a grandfather clock completely halted at exactly 11:47. Then, the dead silence of the house broke. From directly beneath the floorboards came the sound of breathing. It was slow, deep, and required lungs the size of oil drums to produce. Every survival instinct screamed at him to walk out the front door and let the demolition crew handle it. Instead, a morbid, overwhelming curiosity took over. He followed his flashlight beam down a set of stone stairs into absolute pitch darkness. Looking at this vector model, you can see the structural problem Daniel found at the bottom of the stairs. His light caught an enormous iron cage. The heavy iron bars hadn't been crushed inward. They were warped outward, bent like soft wax. This requires immense pressure applied from the inside. Something had broken out. The visual here highlights the scattered, cracked bones covering the stone floor. Notice how the bone is split perfectly lengthwise. This specific fracture pattern doesn't happen by accident. It is exactly how a predator cracks a bone open to extract the marrow. The evidence in the cellar, the outward force on the iron, the precise fracture of the marrow, suggested a level of strength and intent that exceeded a simple animal encounter. The focus of the mission had shifted. Documenting the structure was no longer possible under these conditions. A low growl rattled the dust from the ceiling. 2 sickly yellow eyes opened in the blackness, rising impossibly high off the floor. It stood bipedal like a man, covered in matted black fur and heavily coiled muscle, its jaw unhinging far beyond normal anatomical limits. Daniel dropped the flashlight and ran. As he scrambled up the stairs, the architecture of the house itself seemed to warp. Hallways stretched out longer than the physical footprint of the building. Doors he had already passed reappeared in front of him, as if the mansion was actively herding him back into the dark. He finally burst into the dining room, but the creature was already there. Its claws raked deep across Daniel's shoulder, tearing through his heavy jacket and skin, leaving a white-hot trail of agony. In a desperate half-second, Daniel grabbed the heavy iron poker from the cold hearth. Driven purely by animal panic, he swung with everything he had, cracking the heavy iron directly against the side of the creature's skull. The thing recoiled with a horrible, almost human shriek. Daniel didn't look back. He sprinted through the front doors, blowing past the gargoyle above the entrance, and collapsed into the dirt at the estate gates, where a horrified Priya was already dialing emergency services. When logic and engineering fail to explain the immediate environment, the mind strips back to its most basic functions. Survival in that moment didn't come from a blueprint or a structural report. It came from a heavy iron rod and the raw instinct to use it. Despite Daniel recounting exactly what he saw from his hospital bed, the responding officers quickly misclassified the incident. The official police report documented his injuries as consistent with a standard bear attack, actively ignoring the impossibility of a bear standing upright with glowing yellow eyes. The planned demolition of the Whitmore Mansion didn't happen. It was quietly postponed, stalled by endless zoning paperwork, and buried under budget shifts until the town simply forgot why the highway extension was canceled. Daniel was left with a 14-stitch physical scar on his shoulder, undeniable, permanent proof of what lived in that cellar. Yet the public record of the event was entirely erased, reduced to nothing more than another local rumor. Human institutions are incredibly efficient at suppressing unexplainable data. By categorizing a monster as a wandering bear, they maintain a fragile, comforting consensus that the world is safe, strictly natural, and completely under our control. Daniel tried to outrun the geography of his trauma. He moved 300 miles away from Ashwood Hollow, taking a quiet desk job in a modern city, entirely separated from old stone houses and dark woods. But you can't outrun a broken reality. Every single year, on the exact anniversary of the attack, Daniel finds himself bolting awake in a cold sweat. He checks the clock. It is always exactly 11:47, and for a few suffocating seconds, he waits to hear enormous breathing from the other side of his bedroom door. Back in Ashwood Hollow, the Whitmore Mansion still stands exactly where it was. The ivy is thicker now. The deep claw marks on the oak door remain entirely untouched by the weather. And above the grand entrance, the stone gargoyle's eyes remain strangely clear of moss, still watching the road below. Down in the pitch black of the cellar, the iron cage remains broken. The creature isn't chained anymore. It possesses infinite patience, resting among the cracked bones, simply waiting for the next person curious enough to turn the handle on the front door. Refusing to acknowledge the unexplainable does not make it disappear. It only leaves the door wide open, guaranteeing that eventually the trap will spring again.